In exactly 10 years, there will be as many trillion-dollar companies as there are billion-dollar companies today.
Wow.
I want you to sit with that for a second because, honestly, it sounds like a misprint. It sounds like straight-up science fiction.
It really does. But the thing is, the source material we are unpacking today, it treats that staggering shift not as some, you know, wild venture capital hype, but as cold, hard arithmetic.
Right. And that arithmetic is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring this fascinating, just incredibly comprehensive manifesto dated August 16th, 2026.
Yeah, it's called Netizen, From Unicorns to Solaras, Why the Next Decade Demands a New Kind of Startup Institution.
And it's authored by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat. And look, this isn't just a casual blog post you skim on your lunch break.
Oh, not at all, no.
We are looking at a meticulously detailed blueprint for the next era of technological and economic abundance. And it's backed by this vast bibliography of the author's own forward-thinking texts.
Yeah, and the overarching thesis here is essentially the death of the unicorn.
Right, the billion-dollar startup.
Exactly. For years, a billion-dollar startup valuation was the holy grail, right? The author argues that era is completely over. We are now entering the age of the Solara, which is,
The trillion-dollar sun.
yes, the trillion-dollar sun.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because if
Yeah.
you are listening to this right now, you likely have a very, very specific mental model of how Silicon Valley works.
Right, the whole mythology of it.
Exactly. You know the lore, right? It's two kids in a garage, a ping pong table in the office, the whole, move fast and break things mantra.
Classic.
Yeah. And this manifesto is basically asking you to take that entire playbook and just throw it out the window.
And to grasp why that old playbook is obsolete, we really have to start exactly where the author does, which is the underlying math of the past 20 years.
The compounding forces, right?
Right. We have seen these massive, independent forces growing in the background for a while now. Software eating the world, the proliferation of high-speed global networks.
Which is huge.
Right. And then the sudden, violent leap forward in artificial intelligence, the restructuring of global energy systems, and, of course, this unprecedented ocean of liquid global capital.
But the crucial point the author makes, and I think this is where it gets really interesting, isn't just that these things exist, it's how they interact with each other.
Exactly.
Like, if I have a piece of software and I add a global network to it, that's addition. It's a linear improvement. But what happens when these specific forces, like AI, energy, and capital, just crash into one another?
They compound. Growth is no longer linear, it multiplies.
Wait, break that down for me. Like, mechanically, how does that work?
So think about the mechanics of this. When you have an artificial intelligence system that can iterate on its own underlying code,
Right, self-improving.
yes, you essentially have intelligence creating better intelligence. Then you plug that self-improving system into a global energy grid where the marginal cost of power is trending towards zero, thanks to advanced solar and renewables.
Okay, so you have infinite brains and basically free electricity.
Right. And finally, you fuel all of that with global capital that can flow across borders instantaneously.
Wow. So you aren't just adding engineers to a team anymore.
Not at all.
You are multiplying intelligence by virtually free energy and then scaling that by infinite capital.
And when you multiply that scale, the traditional ceiling for corporate valuation, it doesn't just crack, it completely shatters.
It just obliterates it.
Yeah. The constraints that kept a company capped at, say, a $1 billion valuation, they simply no longer exist in that equation.
It's crazy to think about because I remember when a billion-dollar valuation was mythical. I mean, it was front-page news in the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, absolutely. The literal definition of a unicorn, right? Something rare.
Exactly. Now, this roadmap treats it as a stepping stone, a mere training ground.
A rounding error, almost.
Right. But, okay, I have to voice the skepticism that I'm sure a lot of people listening have right now. $1 trillion.
It's a tough number to swallow.
It really is. The human brain is notoriously terrible at comprehending scale. Like, I always go back to this example. 1 million seconds is 12 days.
Right.
1 billion seconds is 31 years.
Which is already a huge jump.
Massive jump. But 1 trillion seconds? That's 31,000 years.
It's unfathomable.
It is. Are we really supposed to believe that level of wealth creation is going to become common?
Well, that cognitive blind spot, our inability to process that jump from 31 years to 31,000 years, that is the primary obstacle the author is addressing.
Because we just don't think like that naturally.
Exactly. We are biologically wired to think linearly.
It's the compound interest problem. I use this analogy all the time when talking about exponential growth.
Oh, the penny one.
Yeah, the jar analogy. So
hmm
if I put $1 in a jar every single day, my brain easily understands the outcome. By day 30, I have $30.
Safe, predictable.
Right. It is safe, linear, and entirely predictable. But if I take a single penny and I double it every day, 1 cent, 2 cents, 4 cents, 8 cents, my brain tricks me.
Because early on, it looks like nothing is happening.
Exactly. For the first week or two, it feels like nothing is happening. And you think, well, this is useless. But by day 30, that doubling penny is worth over $5 million.
And that is the perfect mechanical explanation of the Solara concept.
Yeah.
Most legacy investors, they look at a modern AI startup and they apply that dollar in a jar math.
They're just adding.
Right. They project a 10% year-over-year growth rate based on historical data.
Right.
They are fundamentally misjudging the curve.
They're missing the forest for the trees.
Exactly. The author is warning us, in no uncertain terms, that we are deep into the doubling penny era of technology.
We're past day 20 of the penny.
Yes. And the math only works. The Solara only becomes inevitable if you fully accept the reality of the exponential trajectory.
You know, what's wild is that the author even ties this math to something much older, which really caught me off guard.
Oh, the scriptures reference.
Yes. The very first line of the manifesto references the age of abundance prophesied in the scriptures thousands of years ago.
It's a bold opening.
It really is. To open an intensely technical thesis on startup valuations with a theological reference, I mean, that is quite a choice.
It is, but it immediately establishes the stakes.
How so?
By framing technological exponentialism as the modern realization of ancient abundance, the author is explaining why the old economic rules are breaking.
Right, because economics is basically the study of scarcity, right?
Exactly. Traditional economics is entirely based on scarcity. How do we allocate limited resources?
But if resources aren't limited.
Right. When you can generate intelligence and energy at practically zero marginal cost, you escape the zero-sum game.
So you aren't fighting over a pie anymore.
Exactly. You have built a machine that creates infinite pies. That is a Solara, a self-sustaining star of value creation.
Man, infinite pies. Okay, so assuming we accept this premise, right, that the math of the doubling penny is real and trillion-dollar outcomes are mathematically inevitable.
Right.
The immediate urgent question for any founder listening is, how do you actually build a vehicle that can survive that journey?
Yeah, that's the trillion-dollar question.
Because if you are riding a rocket that is accelerating exponentially, you can't build it using the instructions for a bicycle.
No, you definitely cannot. Which brings us to the author's brutal critique of the existing startup ecosystem.
Oh yeah, this part was intense.
Very. He specifically takes aim at Y Combinator and the standard Silicon Valley accelerator model.
Which is wild because, Y Combinator is the foundational bedrock of modern tech. They birthed Airbnb, Stripe, Reddit.
Dropbox, yeah.
They literally wrote the modern startup playbook.
They did. And the author doesn't deny their historical importance, to be fair. The text refers to Y Combinator as the high school that made this world possible.
The high school, that's so patronizing, but also kind of perfect.
Right. It's standardized a very specific early-stage playbook. Keep your teams incredibly small, iterate your product rapidly based on user feedback, rely on the batch culture of your peers, and centralize your entire network in one geographic location, San Francisco.
But the author categorizes this entire 20-year period as the Columbus era of exploration.
Yes.
Let's break down the mechanics of that metaphor because it tells us so much about how venture capital used to work.
It's a great metaphor.
It is. So Christopher Columbus sets sail with a vague, opportunistic goal. He wants a new trade route to Asia.
Right.
He doesn't actually have a map of where he's going. He just picks a direction and sails. He bumps into a completely unexpected continent, drops anchor, hopes to extract enough gold or spices to justify the trip, and then returns home to fund the next voyage.
It is fundamentally exploration by wandering.
Exploration by wandering, yes. And that is the exact mechanism of the early internet startup.
Think about it. You launch a minimal viable product, an MVP.
Right, just get it out there.
Exactly. You throw it out into the market, you see how users react, and if they don't like it, you pivot.
It changed the whole company over a weekend.
Yep. You wander around the market landscape until you sort of discover your business model.
But the author is saying that this opportunistic Columbus-style discovery phase of the internet is dead.
Completely dead. The low-hanging fruit has all been picked.
Because the next destination isn't just another continent across the ocean. The next destination is the moon.
And you cannot reach the moon using the Columbus method.
Right.
The author argues that reaching a trillion-dollar valuation requires what he calls the Neil Armstrong method.
Okay, I have to challenge this, though, because it strikes at the core of startup religion.
It really does.
Like, fail fast, break things, iterate. That isn't just a slogan. It is the foundational doctrine of modern engineering culture.
Absolutely.
The whole idea is that you learn from your microfailures. Why would we suddenly abandon the methodology that built the entire digital economy?
Well, think about the physics of the Armstrong method versus the Columbus method.
Okay.
Columbus could afford to get lost. He could patch a leak in his wooden ship while drifting at sea. But if you fail fast while sitting in a command module in the vacuum of space...
You don't iterate, you explode.
Exactly. You explode.
Ah. Okay, so the cost of failure has just fundamentally changed.
Drastically. The capital intensity required to train frontier AI models today is in the billions of dollars before you even have a product.
Billions, just to train the model.
Yes. And on top of that, you're dealing with the geopolitical realities of semiconductor supply chains and the immense physical complexity of integrating gigawatt-scale data centers into local energy grids.
Right, you can't just spin up an AWS server for $5 anymore.
Exactly. Building at a Solaras scale requires deliberate, unforgiving architecture from day one. You need calculated escape velocity. You need a minute-by-minute roadmap.
Because you can't just A/B test a lunar lander while you're plummeting toward the surface of the moon. That makes total sense. And this Armstrong method also forces a geographic shift, doesn't it? Because the manifesto points out that San Francisco is still a massive asset. Like, it holds the venture infrastructure and the founder DNA, but it can't be the only port anymore.
It just can't. The physical inputs required for a Solara, the raw energy, the advanced manufacturing, the massive compute infrastructure, all of that cannot be constrained to a single 70-square-mile peninsula.
It's just physically impossible.
Right. The new institution, what the author calls the University for the Solara Age, must be a distributed global network.
Okay.
It requires deep local nodes around the world, all connected by a shared operating system of ambition, standards, and capital.
A global nervous system.
Exactly.
So we leave Columbus behind. We embrace Neil Armstrong. We understand that we need a globally distributed operation. But practically speaking, how do you actually write the code for that?
That's where things get very specific.
Right, because how do you map out a lunar landing before you've even sourced the metal for the rocket? Which brings us to the beating heart of the manifesto, the Grand Solara Vision.
And this is where the author pivots from high-level theory to rigorous hard engineering.
Yeah.
The Grand Solara Vision is not a pitch deck.
Right. It is not a clever slogan you put on your website like, we exist to connect the world.
No, it's not an HR branding exercise.
Yeah, totally.
It is a comprehensive, highly technical engineering document.
Let's look at the mechanics of what the author demands this document must contain, because it's a lot.
It is a lot. It requires explicit technical milestones mapped against a timeline. It demands specific capital requirements broken down by phase.
Oh, okay.
It outlines the exact talent pipelines needed, the sequential order of market entry, the regulatory pathways you have to clear in multiple jurisdictions.
Which is huge, dealing with the EU versus the US, for example.
Absolutely. And most importantly, it requires extensive risk matrices and contingency branches.
The risk matrices and contingency branches part is what really separates this from a standard business plan to me.
Oh, for sure.
Because when you build a standard startup, you build a happy path model. You assume everything goes right. Your charts all go up and to the right.
Always.
Right. But a risk matrix mathematically accounts for the probability of disaster.
Yes.
Like, what if China embargoes rare earth metals? What if the EU bans your specific data processing method? You pre-engineer the solution before the crisis even occurs.
The author is applying the exact same severity that the Apollo program used. You account for every single variable because the environment is actively hostile to your success.
You know, it's the difference between planting a garden and architecting a skyscraper.
I like that analogy.
Thanks. Like with the Columbus method, you throw seeds in the dirt, add water, and say, hey, let's see what grows. If it's a tomato, great. If it's a weed, pull it.
Right.
But a Grand Solara Vision is a 100-story skyscraper. You cannot wing the foundation of a skyscraper.
You really can't.
You can't build 30 stories of steel and suddenly decide, you know what, let's pivot and make this a suspension bridge.
Doesn't work that way.
The structural load limits, the wind shear, the bedrock depth, all of it must be calculated before a single shovel hits the dirt.
But the author does include a critical caveat here to prevent this from becoming just a rigid bureaucratic nightmare.
Okay, what is it?
The Grand Solara Vision is subject to rigorous annual revision. It is an active, living document.
Ah, so you aren't blindly following a map if the terrain changes.
Because the terrain will change.
Of course.
If we stick to the Apollo analogy, you design the Saturn V rocket, you calculate the trajectory to the moon, and you launch. But once you are in flight, you receive constant telemetry data.
Right.
Atmospheric density might be different than expected,
Yeah.
or maybe solar flares might interfere with navigation. You adapt to the telemetry, you adjust the thrusters, but you never, ever abandon the mission parameters.
You adapt the plan, but you never operate without the plan.
Exactly. That is a brilliant distinction.
It really is. Adapting a meticulously engineered flight path based on new data is fundamentally different than wandering around the ocean hoping you discover a business model.
Completely different. And the manifesto is really blunt about the consequences here. It says, the organizations and founders who treat trillion-dollar outcomes as a matter of chance will be outpaced by those who treat them as a matter of design.
Which honestly demands an exhausting level of upfront cognitive load from the founders.
It does.
But the penalty for ignoring this preparation is severe. And to illustrate this, the source material leans into one of the most remarkable warnings in modern business history.
The Google store.
Yes, the search engine nobody wanted. This anecdote completely reframed how I look at early-stage valuation.
It's a classic for a reason.
So let's wind the clock back to the late 1990s. The internet is dominated by web portals. Yahoo, Lycos, InfoSeek.
AOL.
Exactly. And the user experience back then was basically, you dial in, you load a massive homepage cluttered with weather, news, and stock tickers, and you stay there.
You just hang out on the portal.
Right. Into this environment walk two scholarship students at Stanford, Larry Page and Sergey Brin.
The founders of Google.
Yep. They have built a search engine, initially called Backrub, later Google. And from a purely technical standpoint, it is vastly superior to anything on the market.
Light years ahead.
It utilizes PageRank algorithms to find exactly what you want almost instantly.
Right, but because they are academics, not businessmen, they initially just want to sell it and get back to their PhDs.
Which is so funny to think about now.
It really is. So they take this miraculous technology to the incumbents. They go to Yahoo.
And Yahoo passes, right?
Yeah, Yahoo passes, saying they already have their own search directory.
Yeah.
So they go to Lycos and InfoSeek. And the reason they're rejected is just one of the greatest ironies in tech history.
Oh, this part kills me. They were rejected because their search engine was simply too fast.
Too vast.
We have to explain the mechanics of why speed was a threat because it highlights the entire problem with the legacy thinking.
Yes, let's break that down.
So the portal business model was essentially a digital shopping mall. Their entire revenue stream relied on keeping a user inside their ecosystem for as long as possible so they could serve them dozens of banner ads.
Right. Eyeballs on the page.
Exactly. If a user came to Yahoo, searched for a recipe, and Yahoo instantly gave them the exact link and sent them away to another website, Yahoo lost money.
The incumbents viewed speed as a bug, not a feature.
A bug.
Because it cannibalized their core business model.
So you have these brilliant founders, Larry and Sergey, the smartest people in the industry, the CEOs of the biggest tech companies on Earth, are literally telling them their product is commercially useless.
Unbelievable.
They are completely crestfallen. They are ready to sell Google for a fraction of what it would eventually be worth.
Just to get rid of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? Because neither the founders nor the market had a Grand Solara Vision. They had no idea what the ultimate carrying capacity of their technology actually was.
And this is where the author connects the history to the present moment. The manifesto argues that right now there are dozens of startups sitting in that exact same Stanford dorm room phase.
Dozens of them.
Yeah. They are engineering world-changing, hyper-efficient technology. They are future Solaras. But they are quietly, dangerously accepting the verdict of incumbent buyers and legacy venture capitalists who are entirely constrained by archaic business models.
They're the modern equivalents of Yahoo telling the modern equivalents of Google that their AI is too efficient or that it cannibalizes too much of the current software as a service model.
Yes. These founders are measuring their trillion-dollar technology against a billion-dollar ruler.
A billion-dollar ruler. That is perfectly stated.
And so Paramendra, the author of this manifesto, makes an incredibly bold intervention directly in the text here.
This blew my mind. He explicitly offers his services for free.
Right.
He writes to these future Solara founders and says, hire me to create a Grand Solara Vision for your company. It is non-binding. It will cost you nothing but your attention.
It is a remarkable strategic move. I mean, why give away a meticulously engineered architectural document for free?
Because it's a wake-up call.
Exactly. The author's stated purpose is to awaken these founders to the true scale of what they have built.
He wants to intercept the next Larry and Sergey.
Right, before they sell their engine for $1 million to a dying portal.
Yeah.
By handing them the mathematical roadmap to a trillion-dollar outcome, he forces them to lift their eyes from the micro-iterations of their product and look at the moon landing.
It is a mechanism to actively refuse leaving success to chance.
That's exactly it.
It's basically saying, look, I will show you the exact math of your own potential, and once you see it, you will never accept a legacy valuation again.
It ruins them for anything less.
Precisely. But let's say it works, right? Let's say you're the founder, you have your awakening, you possess this brilliant engineering document with all your risk matrices mapped out.
Okay.
You still have to actually build the thing.
Yeah.
And you cannot build a Solar alone. You need humans. You need talent.
Which leads us into the author's brutal takedown of the modern hiring apparatus.
Oh, man. The critique here is withering.
It really is. The manifesto argues that the entire global recruitment infrastructure platforms like LinkedIn, applicant tracking systems, generic job boards is completely broken when it comes to Solara scale ambition.
Totally broken. Because what did those platforms actually optimize for? Volume.
Right.
They optimize for keyword matching. You type in senior Python developer, and the algorithm spits out 10,000 resumes that have the word Python in them.
It optimizes for what the text calls incremental hiring.
Incremental hiring. That's the Columbus-era way of filling seats.
Yes. It relies on the polite fiction that every software company is basically doing the same thing. But building a Solara requires a wildly different set of human traits.
Wildly different.
Standard filters cannot measure extreme technical depth paired with long horizon ambition. And more importantly, standard platforms cannot screen for founder-level judgment.
Founder-level judgment. Let's define the mechanics of that, because that term gets thrown around a lot.
It does, but he means something very specific here.
Right. When you hire someone with founder-level judgment, you aren't hiring a subordinate who waits for a list of tasks.
No.
You are hiring someone who understands the macro environment. They can read the Grand Solara Vision, understand the risk matrix, and make autonomous, high-stakes decisions as if their own life savings were on the line.
Exactly. And you cannot find that trait by running a keyword search for 5 years of experience on a job board.
You just can't. The resolution of the existing tools is far too low.
So to solve this, the author proposes building a proprietary, closed-loop recruitment engine from scratch.
And the strategic blueprint for this engine borrows directly from one of the greatest infrastructure plays in history, right? Amazon Web Services.
Yes. This is where the business strategy gets incredibly elegant.
I love the AWS analogy. Let's look at how AWS started, because a lot of people don't know this.
Right. It's a fascinating story.
In the early 2000s, Amazon was not trying to become the world's cloud computing provider.
Not at all.
They were an e-commerce bookstore growing so fast that their own internal server architecture was literally breaking. They couldn't launch new products because provisioning a new server took weeks.
It's a survival crisis.
Right, pure survival. So, just to save themselves, Amazon built a modular, highly efficient, decoupled infrastructure. They built the ultimate internal tool.
And then?
But once it was built, they realized, wait a minute, if this infrastructure is powerful enough to solve our massive scaling problems, it is probably powerful enough to solve everyone else's.
Exactly. They opened it up to the public, and AWS became the profit engine of the entire internet.
So how does the manifesto apply that to talent?
It applies that exact trajectory to talent acquisition. The text explicitly states, the engine will first be built for internal needs. That is the only honest starting point.
Oh, okay.
The standards required to source talent for a Solara are so mathematically extreme that any system capable of successfully doing it internally will, by definition, be vastly superior to any commercial platform currently on the market.
Build it to survive, then scale it as a product.
Yes.
But here's the twist, and this is where I had to really stop and think about the strategies.
The constraint.
Yes. The manifesto explicitly states that once this recruitment platform is operational, access to it will be strictly limited. Only tech startups that already possess a fully articulated Grand Solara Vision will be allowed to use it.
Right.
Now, basic platform economics tells us that restricting access is the absolute opposite of how you build a massive network. Don't you want maximum liquidity? Don't you want every company and every candidate on Earth using your system to maximize the data?
Well, if you were building a volume-based advertising business like LinkedIn, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But if you are building an engine for trillion-dollar outcomes, volume is actually your enemy. Noise is your enemy.
Noise is your enemy. Interesting.
The restriction is the magic. It creates what the author calls a closed loop of quality.
Mm,
And this constraint functions as a nearly impenetrable strategic moat.
I see it now. It's a gravitational pull based entirely on the signal-to-noise ratio. Because if the only companies allowed on the platform are those that have mathematically engineered a roadmap to $1 trillion, then the ambition level is intensely concentrated.
Hyper-concentrate.
And when you concentrate that much serious ambition in one place, who does it attract? The absolute highest caliber of talent.
Precisely. The elite engineers, the operators with founder-level judgment, they don't want to sift through thousands of mediocre job postings.
No, they want to work on moon landings.
Right. So they flock to this constrained platform. And then the machine learning algorithms powering the recruitment engine train exclusively on this hyper-concentrated high-signal data.
Ah, so the AI gets smarter too.
Yes. It learns exactly what a Solara-level match looks like without being confused by the data of 1,000 average companies making average hires.
So the talent pool never gets diluted. It just becomes this compounding cycle of quality.
And the moat is impenetrable because no competitor can easily copy it.
Because if a legacy job board tries to compete, they can't suddenly demand that all their clients produce a Grand Solara Vision.
Right, their clients would just leave.
They'd go out of business.
Exactly. Standard platforms cannot enforce the constraint without destroying their own revenue models. Thus, the proprietary recruitment engine solves the immediate internal problem of finding talent, while simultaneously locking in a strategic infrastructure monopoly for the most ambitious startups on the planet.
It all comes back to deliberate design.
Always.
You design the math, you design the vision, you design the talent pool. But to truly understand the depth of this design, we have to pull all the way back.
Let's zoom out.
Yeah, because everything we've discussed so far, the math, the Columbus versus Armstrong method, the Google analogy, the talent engine, this is just the mechanical layer of a much, much larger architectural universe.
It is. The scope of the source material provided for this deep dive is, frankly, just staggering.
It is a lot to get through.
Yeah. The manifesto is accompanied by a massive ecosystem of linked texts, books, blogs, and essays authored by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat. And these span from 2005 all the way to projections for 2028.
It reads like a living, breathing, cinematic universe of future history.
That's a good way to put it.
And we have to examine these overarching themes because they prove that a Solara thinker doesn't just look at code. They look at global trade routes, political movements, and physical supply chains.
Because to engineer a trillion-dollar company, you have to understand the geopolitical friction of the world it operates in.
Exactly. Let's look at the specific mechanics outlined in some of these titles.
Sure.
So you have physical AWS, which outlines a future where the logistics and supply chain layer of the physical world becomes as modular and accessible as cloud computing.
Imagine that.
Right. Then you have 1,000 Solaras in 10 years, which applies the Solara methodology not just to a few distinct outliers, but to industrial-scale creation.
The mass production of trillion-dollar companies.
Nice. And then you have agentic AI. And we aren't just talking about large language models that, write your emails for you.
No, this is much bigger.
The mechanics of agentic AI involve autonomous software agents that can execute multi-step economic tasks independently.
Negotiating contracts, provisioning servers, routing capital.
All without human intervention.
It's wild. And then the book, The Speed Builders, tackles the physical world, exploring the engineering required for humanity to deliver massive mega projects, like new cities or global transit systems, in a matter of months rather than decades.
But the author doesn't stop at tech. He also deeply analyzes the political and economic variables that will govern this convergence age.
This is where the systems thinking really shines.
Right, because the bibliography includes analyses from wildly different ends of the political spectrum.
Yes.
For instance, there is an extensive focus on the AOC moment. 4 megatrends reshaping America.
which explores progressive economic shifts and wealth distribution paradigms.
Exactly. But this sits right alongside intense, hardline analyses of global trade, such as peace for Taiwan is possible and rethinking trade.
Which dive deep into tariff protections and nationalist supply chain defenses.
And it is vital to note here, for our listeners, that we are observing this vast array of topics impartially. The author is analyzing massive progressive wealth movements alongside aggressive global tariff structures. We are not taking a political stance on whether progressive distribution or nationalist trade defense is the correct policy.
Right, that's not the point.
The point is that the author treats both of these political realities as critical variables in a global mathematical equation.
Yes. A Solara architect has to model for both left-wing economic shifts and right-wing geopolitical barriers.
Because they both impact the supply chain.
Exactly. That impartial systems-level thinking is exactly how you build a real risk matrix. You don't ignore political reality just because you don't like it. You engineer around it.
You build it into the model.
Yep. And perhaps the most concrete geopolitical strategy in the entire ecosystem is the author's intense, sustained focus on Nepal.
Yes, the concept of Himalayan compute.
It's fascinating.
It comes up constantly across the texts. Slide presentations, podcasts, a detailed blueprint for triple-digit economic growth in Nepal.
So why Nepal?
Right. To the casual observer, the Himalayas might seem completely disconnected from a trillion-dollar AI startup based in San Francisco.
Sure.
But when you look at the mechanics, it is a stroke of geographic genius.
It really is. It connects perfectly back to our earlier discussion about the distributed global Solara network.
Because what are the two absolute bottlenecks for training the next generation of artificial intelligence?
Massive amounts of compute power, which requires massive amounts of raw energy.
Yes.
And the thermodynamic ability to keep those giant server farms from melting down.
Energy and cooling. And the Himalayas provide an infinite natural supply of both.
Wow.
You have the geographic altitude and ambient temperatures required for passive free cooling of massive data centers.
Passive cooling. That saves so much money.
Exactly. And you have the immense hydroelectric potential of Himalayan river systems to provide clean, gigawatt-scale energy.
So the author isn't just writing about a startup.
Yeah.
He is positioning a sovereign nation-state as a critical physical infrastructure node in the global Solara ecosystem.
It is a blueprint to trigger a 20% growth revolution in Nepal by literally transforming it into the server room of the convergence age.
The server room of the convergence age. I love that. And he weaves this physical infrastructure together with an entirely new economic and spiritual framework he calls Kalkism.
Kalkism. Let's touch on that.
The texts describe Kalkism as a philosophy for the age of abundance. If the AI and the hydropower eliminate the marginal cost of intelligence and energy, you eliminate the root cause of human resource conflict.
Because there's enough for everyone.
Right. It is a philosophy built on the premise that technological abundance can literally engineer peace.
It is a remarkable synthesis. Everything is connected.
And to your earlier point about how a Solara architect thinks, the author even addresses the granular mechanics of capital distribution within this massive system.
Right, the equity formula.
Yes. There's a whole text dedicated to the company 30-30-10 equity formula for tech startups.
Let's talk about the 30-30-30-10 formula. Because the traditional venture capital model is incredibly lopsided. The VC puts in the money, takes a massive chunk of the company, the founders get heavily diluted over time, and the actual employees, the engineers literally building the Solara, are fighting over a tiny 10% option pool.
Which makes no sense if you want founder-level judgment.
Exactly. While the manifesto doesn't give away the entire mathematical derivation in the high-level summary, the premise of a new equity formula is essential to the Solara transition.
It has to be. If you are demanding that your talent operates with founder-level judgment, you simply cannot compensate them like standard Columbus-era employees.
They won't stick around.
No. You have to re-architect the equity distribution so that the financial rewards actually align with the trillion-dollar outcomes you are engineering.
The sheer breadth of this vision is just astonishing. I mean, Paramendra is tackling the math of equity distribution in one breath, architecting hydroelectric data centers in Nepal in the next.
And writing fictional narratives.
Yes. Like his novels 6 Weeks from Zero or Gen Z Kranti, which are translated into Maithili and Hindi, just to map the cultural psychology of the generation that will actually live in this future.
This is the ultimate answer to what a long-horizon vision truly looks like in practice.
It's all-encompassing.
The author isn't just predicting the future. He is actively trying to write the source code for the convergence age.
Yeah.
He is linking the raw, compounding power of AI, energy, and capital with the infinite complexities of human governance, global trade, and human psychology.
It is the ultimate Grand Solara Vision, but applied to a human life's work. The roadmap is completely laid out across decades of writing.
It is a profound testament to the power of deliberate design over opportunistic wandering.
It really is. So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Good question.
Let's trace the arc of the blueprint we just unpacked. We started by confronting the terrifying, exhilarating math of the doubling penny.
The inescapable reality that the billion-dollar unicorn is dead and the trillion-dollar Solara is the new baseline.
Right. And we learned why the reactive, fail-fast wandering of the Columbus era will get you killed in the vacuum of space.
And why we must adopt the calculated, rigorous Neil Armstrong method.
We saw the absolute necessity of the Grand Solara Vision, a living, breathing, annually revised engineering document that maps every contingency from day one.
We absorbed the warning of the Google founders, realizing the immense danger of measuring tomorrow's hyper engines against today's dying business models.
Yes. We examined the strategic brilliance of the closed-loop recruitment mode, realizing that you can only attract founder-level judgment if you actively filter out the noise of incremental ambition.
And finally, we zoomed all the way out to see the global chessboard. We saw how a true Solara architect views sovereign nations, geopolitical trade currents, and new equity paradigms as the physical raw materials required to build the future.
The paradigm shift is total.
It is absolute.
It is. And as we close out this deep dive, I want you to turn this lens inward.
Apply it to yourself.
Exactly. Look at your own career, your own startup, your own creative projects. Are you operating on the math of the dollar in the jar, or are you preparing for the doubling penny?
Are you exploring or are you engineering?
Right. When you set out to build something, are you just throwing seeds in the dirt and hoping for the best, or are you engineering a skyscraper? Are you surrounding yourself with people who just want to fill a seat, or are you selecting for the kind of judgment that can navigate a living roadmap to the moon?
Operating with that level of intentionality is not easy.
Oh, it's exhausting.
It demands a relentless cognitive discipline. However, I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over.
Okay, lay it on us.
A question that challenges the very premise of this magnificent blueprint.
I'm ready.
The entire Solara methodology advocates for extreme, unyielding design. It treats trillion-dollar outcomes as a rigorous engineering problem to be solved with risk matrices and telemetry. But if we systematically eliminate opportunistic wandering, if we completely overwrite the Columbus method with a rigid, albeit revisable, Grand Solara Vision, do we risk engineering out the serendipity?
Oh, wow.
The human unpredictability. If absolutely every outcome is mapped, calculated, and designed from day one, what happens to the beautiful, chaotic accidents that has historically sparked our greatest leaps forward?
Man. If the architectural blueprint is perfectly flawless, do we lose the magic of stumbling into the unknown?
Exactly.
That is an incredible question, something to deeply consider the next time you sit down to map out the future of your own endeavors. Thank you so much for joining us on this exhaustive journey into the architecture of tomorrow. Keep your eyes firmly fixed on the horizon, but never forget to check your telemetry. We will catch you on the next deep dive.